Namaskar and welcome to this exciting episode of Sattology, debunking mythology. Sattology means science of truth or study of truth. Opposite of that is mythology, which means science or study of fake, lie, or imagination. Like I always say, Sattology builds your identity, whereas mythology destroys your identity. So there is a fashion amongst many scholars to call all native histories as mythology because that's what they're paid to tell. There is no other reason for that. There is no reason they themselves privately admit that natives always had more humane, more kind, more compassionate words of wisdom. In fact, the best words of wisdom in the US you'll find will be by the Native American leaders. And those are so thought provoking and soul searching ones. And even before that, the Vedic literatures and Ramayana and Mahabharata texts, they have itihas or history has much more profound instructions for humanity. So I have a very special guest today. He has been working in the US for many, many years, promoting Hindu causes, and now he has moved back to India. I know him by name for many years, lot of common friends, but got a chance to invite him today. So let us welcome Pramod Kumar Buravalli. Welcome, Pramod.
Namaste, namaste, namaste. How are you?
I am doing well. The very, very difficult three words to ask anyone. How are you? It's like,
Yes,
where to begin now? So,
yeah,
since you are in India now, so you must be seeing or observing a lot of things which you have been talking in the West, but now you are living
yes,
with that, right in the middle.
yes, yes.
So, what is your take on this now? Because you're gone back to India, Bharat, with your roots.
Experiencing Bharat is to live in Bharat. You have to observe. You have to see what is the ecosystem like. It's 21 years since I came back, and when you look at things from you know sort of a observer perspective, a lot has changed. Lot of aspirational young men are bringing a lot of new ideas, especially in technology, biotech. I see a lot of experimentation happening at startup level itself, and on the sattvic side also, considering this being the crux of and the reason why I came back is to essentially take part in the yajna directly. I was doing that from the US, and to see how I can become part of the yajna to reclaim the old Bharat, right? So this is what I was doing in the US on the narrative front, but to see it upfront and personal, you actually get a very nice idea of the practical problems, why certain things have happened on the narrative front, why certain things have happened on the traditional front. I have been going around temples, going around mathas, meeting a lot of personalities, meeting a lot of gurus who have actual on the ground uh, analysis of the situation. And unless I go through the journey, unless I become not just the observer but also try to understand the ground realities, I will only be commenting. As you probably know, Adiji, I have been running a platform called Mind, then embarked into Karmanya Creations, which is a film production company, in 2019, because we were always assuming that the only part that was missing for our civilization was the storytelling part. I'll tell you an interesting story with your permission. My grandfather was a Harikatha Bhagavatar. Harikatha Bhagavatars are people who have a tampura. This is the Nardiya Kirtan Paddhati. They have a chitlis and they go around from one village to another where they sing and they perform on a stage. If there is no stage, they just perform impromptu on the road and tell the story of Hari. That is exactly what it is, Hari Katha, in different languages. My grandfather wrote Bhagavad Gita in Harikatha format, so his favorite was Bhagavad Gita. Tell for everything and anything, the solution was find it in Bhagavad Gita. But how do you tell the story? You can't tell the story to a generation that is fully into films. You can't tell a story to a generation that is only looking at online narrative, or online, their education is online, or even in the day-to-day education system. You can't. So you always constantly evolve the way of telling the story of Hari in a new format. He passed away in 89, and then my father's elder brother took on the profession, and he did that for a very long period of time, wrote hundreds of books. And I felt that that is what my profession should have been. But financial situation apart, I could not dive into the deeper adhyatma. Now you don't tell the story of Hari unless you have that experience, right? You cannot tell the story of Krishna unless you experience Krishna. I was away from that. I read Mahabharata, but from an academic standpoint, I was a very avid listener of pravachans from other pravachanakartas in Telugu, especially, but never thought that I myself will get into it, because my knowledge was always complete, not just according to myself, but I always felt that I'm not ready to go to a guru. I've been more focused on the technology part. I was never initiated into a sampradaya. So I dived into it only after 2014, when I found some time, professional time. Then coming to India, after gaining that confidence and after gaining that sort of bliss, or I can't say, how do I say that? It's at a point where you are eager to tell the story. I would say that I was overflowing with joy to just say it to somebody कि मैंने ये experience किया. This is what I've gone through. You can't do that as much as I wanted to in the US, because uh, US has a different kind of structure with the story I had to tell. And when I started talking about relocating to India in 2018 with my wife obviously had the first quick question was कि हम जाके करेंगे क्या? What will we do there? Professionally, we were set. I have an IT company. Lekin then I said, look, it's not just about the professional part. It is about what can I do in this larger scheme of things. If my grandfather was a Harikatha Bhagavatar, never earned a single rupee till the very end. He was singing songs on Krishna, on Lord Venkateshwara. Same with my father's elder brother, my Bade Papa. And I want to do that, but where? Where should I do that? As a so-called Brahmana who has understood the way of knowledge, can I do that in the US? Should I live somewhere else? And my natural inclination was, चलो India चलते हैं. Let us learn more, because I felt कि मैं ज़्यादा और मेरे knowledge की जो तृष्णा है, the kind of eagerness I want to grasp onto so many different aspects of our Sanatan Dharma can only be fulfilled. That thirst can only be fulfilled only in India. So I said, चलो India चलते हैं. And then COVID stopped us from doing it for 2 years. Planning took a lot of time, and now here we are, 6 months in India, and I'm pleased to say that the experience has been incredible, very satisfying, very, very peaceful to know that I'm in India.
So, Bhagavad Gita says, Brahman, Kshatriya, Visham, Shudranam, cha Parantapa, Karmani Vibhaktani, Svabhava Pravir Gune. Like in Bhagavad Gita 18.41, Krishna says that Brahman, Vaishya, Shudra, Kshatriya, they are recognized by the work according to their guna and bhava, according to their inclinations. But now, since you have come to India, there are slogans being raised, Brahman Chodo Bharat. Only Brahman, nobody else. No, but they have not told which Brahman has to leave. Congress supporter or BJP supporter or RSS member. I do not know which Brahman they are saying. Because according to Bhagavad Gita, Brahman means can be anyone who has those qualities. And they are all over the world, like you can say Shama, Dava, Tapa, Shaucham, Shanti, Rajam, Avivta. All these 9 qualities of Brahman are there. And many people in the world have those qualities. So
Hmm.
which Brahman these people are talking about, and who is asking who to leave?
I feel I have a two-way answer to that, Adiji. My way of looking at the reading of Puranas and the reading of Itihasas, where such incidents have happened and continue to happen and will happen, I look at it from a karmic perspective. So I obviously I would like to answer you in the way you want the application part of it of Bhagavad Gita. कि गुणों से ही जिसकी जिसकी आलोचना ब्रह्म तत्व के ऊपर है, he becomes a Brahmin. He is not somebody because of the birth, just because he is wearing a jane, he or she is is born into a Brahmin family. That is not the priority for attaining certain higher level of consciousness. But the unfortunate element of it is कि ये होता ही रहा है. All across our Puranas or Itihasas, it is mentioned that Brahmins or those who are aspiring for that higher level of consciousness, the Brahma Tattva, so to speak, have always been persecuted. Why? Because they have absolutely failed in conveying that very thought that you just conveyed. It is based on gunas. I feel the failure is on our side to communicate it to the larger masses कि भाई ये कोई भी हो सकता है. It is not panditya, it is gyan that is more important. I've seen that over and over again happen because, and I blame that on myself too, कि मैंने इन इनर एस्पेक्ट्स के बारे में कभी बात ही नहीं किया, because whenever I do that, I close it myself. To experience that, I have to go through certain processes which has to be done in silence. और जब silence आ जाता है, बात निकलती ही नहीं है. Maybe that is what our ancestors who were also equally persecuted faced. They never invested in media or maybe a medium, so to speak, to convey कि भाई आप भी इसमें आ सकते हो, आप सब लोग आ सकते हो. There is no sort of difference between a Valmiki, a Vyasa, or a Vasistha, or a Vishwamitra. There is a path that they took, irrespective of their birth. They had to go through that and attain that level, which has led to a lot of great things.
See the qualities which
So,
are mentioned before you continue. The qualities mentioned: Shama, Dama, Tapa, Shaucham, Shantir, Arjamam, Evacha, Jnanam, Vijnanam, Astikyam. 9 qualities. Brahma, Karma, Swabhavajam. Like these are the activities of people who engage in Brahma Karma according to their own nature. You know, there is nowhere it's been mentioned as by birth. As Krishna could have said Jayate, but he did not use those words. It's purely karma, purely karma. Now, you mentioned 2 points that they never defended themselves. They're not supposed to defend themselves. If they were supposed to defend themselves, then why you need the second order of life? The second order is like they are protected by kshatriyas who have totally different qualities. Shaurya, total mutually exclusive qualities. Shaurya,
correct,
Tej, Dhir, Daksham, Dhirtir, Dakshyam, Yuddhe, Chapalayanam, Danam, Ishwara Bhavascha. 7 qualities. Now, the the people who are supposed to protect them are all silent when these kind of things happen. Unfortunately and fortunately,
uh,
people in
mm,
the public are protecting, questioning. Like we are also questioning who should leave? Why should anyone leave? Because these people, like same thing which happened to South Americans.
yeah,
European settlers came from there, from Europe, and asked the intelligent people of the native communities to either convert or leave. Same thing happened with the Spanish in Philippines. They gave an ultimatum that either you convert or leave. Now same thing is
correct.
happening in right now, and unfortunately or fortunately they have spoken very loudly. And so my question is, Brahman Bharat Chodo. Then who is the Brahman and who should leave? Ultimately, the
Correct,
terrorists should leave the country who are threatening other
correct,
people. So what is your view on that?
correct. My view is that this is a recurrent theme. It is only increasing uh, because of lack of defenses that the community of knowledgeable people have unfortunately forgotten to build around themselves, or the another other parts of the community, like you rightly said, the Kshatriyas, which are supposed to protect the Brahmanas, are the actual people who are investing their resources and time and their Vyaktitva into the knowledge front. They themselves have to take up the art of defending themselves, and it has happened in the past. It is not that the rishis or the sadhus, the sampradayas have not protected. I'm doing research now on how the Naga sadhus fought to the last man defending the Kashi Vishwanath temple, right? So there is they did that for Mathura, they did that for Kashi Vishwanath. Who knows how many other temples they tried protecting, succeeded. Some of them they did not succeed. So when knowledge does not get protected in a society, and people call it, जैसे ही मैं कहीं पे कई कॉन्फ्रेंस में चला जाता हूँ, especially tech conferences, they say this is a knowledge economy. But who is going to protect that knowledge? Who is going to preserve it? Who is going to copyright it? Who is going to say that, look, this is how we came up with, this is a huge train of thought spanning thousands of years, and we have the original copyright or patent to it. And if the persons who are supposedly going to take the arms to protect you, the state, rather, doesn't protect, then it is in the hands of the people. Again, there is a different layer, because those who are at a higher state, they don't need protection. If they are at a supreme state of elevated consciousness, then they are there to protect us, actually, with their siddhis and with their vidyas. But the normal people who are now more in number, there is a very big sort of community that has emerged for the past 15-20 years on pant shirt wearing Brahmanas, so to speak. Pant shirt wearing, meaning they are not sporting a shikha, they are not donning a vesti, but they've realized what has the secular state done to them, kept them away from the traditional sources of knowledge. They have been themselves indoctrinated to such an extent that they start realizing that, look, whatever is being told to us is a blatant lie. Call it the effect of social media, call it the effect of the new pravachanakartas. They've all realized that they have no sort of, they have not tapped into that ancient knowledge. They're just trying their best by at least going to the mandir, going and listening to some pravachans, now doing some Sundarakanda Parayanam, or in North India, they do Ramayana part. So that is at a very early stage. You are still at least राम का आपके मुंह से निकल रहा है, and you are at least doing some parayanam and saying some things which with that itself is a different energy that it will take you to a different plane. Lekin that is just scratching of the surface, Adiji. That is just scratching of the surface, because you have to get initiated. You have to go through a sampradaya, to go through a difficult path. It is not that easy. Like what pop Hinduism में 10 saying बोल दिया, 10 भगवत गीता में second अध्याय का कर दिया पारायण. People are now quoting that in context of their professional excellence. People are saying कि नहीं मैं कोविड से इतना झेल पाया because I kept doing some other parayan, which is all good. It is the beginning. It is the beginning of a urge in the civilization to rediscover itself. But then they are refusing to take that deep dive because of lack of time, sochiye, या lack of easy access to that knowledge, या guru parampara. People normally don't just go up to a sampradaya and say, please मुझे initiate कर दीजिए. ऐसा नहीं होता है ना. You have to go through it through a regular proper channel. So that's the practical part of it that I've been observing is the pant shirt wearing Brahmanas who are eager to digest and learn more do not have access to that kind of ready initiation that could be happening. There are millions of people,
So
unfortunately.
since you are in India right now, and you must be seeing that our paramparas are alive and kicking. The paramparas have never
Yeah,
gone down.
no,
Only
no,
the
no.
only the kings who don't follow them have gone down. So and also it's a kind of a democracy introduces a committee rule, kind of committee rule.
Mm,
So there is not one
mm.
person responsible. Like if I take the example of people love to quote Shastra, but tell me even one Dharmic Raja in any of the histories who has silently observed that so much attack against Brahmana and just kept quiet. Because people are known by karma.
That is
Like
an excellent point. That is
so
an
people have
excellent point.
silently observed, and no Raja, no politician has spoken against it, which is a itself the demise of Dharma. Because people are, you know, a dharmic person is never scared because he's just repeating the words of the Dharma. Even that is
Mhm.
not there. Condemnation is not there because
No,
free speech is to be protected by anyone who is in power because they are playing the role of Kshatriya. Anyone who is in power, or in police,
correct,
or in armed forces, anywhere they
correct.
are in any position of responsibility, it is their duty to speak against it openly, and which should be protected by the judiciary system of the country. So, do you feel sad about it? It's not happening?
Excellent point. Because the state is supposed to, when Indian democratic states at the Janapada and Mahajanapada level used to exist, there was two-way democracy. You can say a point of criticism, and the other side can respond. Now, just imagine the situation that happened at the university, JNU, or wherever this is happening with alarming alacrity. That if somebody writes, instead of "go back Brahmins," leave the country Brahmins, some other community, let us say a community belonging to the backward community, or some community, let us say Muslim community or Christian community, SC community, the state actually gives enough protections in the constitution itself for the others who are getting persecuted not to say a thing against them. In fact, immediately as soon as you say it, you will get arrested. But on the other side, the people who are keeping quiet, the people who have been silently being persecuted, have no recourse except maybe file a case and say that, hey, you are offending my sensibilities, because there's nothing there. You're not promoting enmity between two communities. You're just saying go back. To usko kya karte hain? They say that, look, it is creating a public disturbance. You can register a case, but there is no witness, and it happens with such alarming frequency that you can't all dry erase or do a quick sort of whitewash of it. The state, in this case, the secular democratic state of India, allows for the persecution of the non-protected categories, the non-BC, the non-SC, ST, Muslims, the Christians. So, कौन बच गए? The traditionally born Brahmins, the traditionally born Kshatriyas, meaning by birth, the by birth Vaishyas, the by birth Shudras, who are considered forward caste because of their economic situation. So maybe about 30 to 35% are allowed to be abused, allowed to be persecuted. You can cut their janeus, you can cut their shikas, you can cut their mooch, whatever it is. If there is a public display of their identity, you are going to be persecuted. This is the unfortunate, sad part that I have been observing, and it is promoted by the constitutional law that is not equality driven. It is actually disproportionately against these specific sects of people. Again, when I mean Brahmin, you and I are talking in the context of Brahmin by knowledge, Brahmin by guna, Brahmin by karma. But in the constitution, it clearly says Brahmin by birth, because it is clearly defining who an SC by birth is. Now, it is subject to a lot of debate because a lot of intercaste marriages have happened. There is people who are declaring no caste; they're just saying Hindu. There are some of them are not even declaring the word Hindu. It is going to be very interesting what the statistics of the 2022 census. Actually, it should have been done in 21, लेकिन नहीं हुआ because of COVID. Once those numbers come in, the politics which is driving all of this majoritarian democratic politics of the secular state, times are going to be very bleak, because unfortunately those who are born into those castes will continue to be persecuted over and over again, not by the majority but by the state. It's very unfortunate.
we all know that 1901 caste census in India by the British actually institutionalized this framework,
Yeah,
and unfortunately it has not been changed. And just now you referred the Constitution of India, which is not following Bhagavad Gita's definition, and which is we're celebrating Gita Jayanti, and people are yesterday we celebrated, and today people are celebrating the celebratory mood for some time for Gita Jayanti. People are still reading it, but we are not essentially following what it says very clearly. I mean, and
no,
American universities are propagating that Krishna created the caste system. Now, caste is a
yeah,
European word. I know. Outcast is a word used in Europe extensively even today.
yeah,
It's not used in India. Like there is no Hindi word for jati bahar. There is no such thing.
correct,
Outcast is a European term again. So because the caste
correct,
is a European word, it has nothing to do with India. So all
correct.
this
But
mispropaganda is there, but people like you, educated people are there who are understanding what is the Western game plan. And I mean, it's not even a game plan. It's just that inherent to show somebody else down purely for economic reasons, nothing else.
it is Adiji, it is preparation that they have been doing for almost 100 to 200 years with the literature, with the German Indology schools, with the South Asian studies program in all universities in the United States. That is what a superpower does. Great Britain did it. To a large extent, Soviet Union did it. Now the US is doing it, which is what? Is to prepare collateral, prepare material to pin you down. They have done that successfully with China. They have done that successfully with the Islamic world. Or Bachakon, the only one that is surviving that has a thought process of its own is the Indic and Hindu civilization. So they prepare all of these arsenal and hide it in places of academic excellence. Brown University coming up with it. All of this is these guys are very linear thinking people. So they have one template fits all. तो वो एक टेम्पलेट हमारे खिलाफ होगा कि this is misogynistic culture, this is a casteist culture, this. So all of these are predefined. Literature will then, once you've lined these up, literature is then returned to justify that segregation. वो segregation किस तरह से क्यों करना चाहते हैं? Because they've realized that even when people like you, me, we go over to the US, irrespective of where we belong to, we could have belonged to a lowest of the low. My mother pawned her jewelry to send me to the United States. She couldn't even afford to give me 4 lakh rupees, which at that time was $8,000. She had to pawn everything she had. And now I am being accused of taking their jobs, and I'm being accused to have a higher standard of living. I'm being accused to have of having a good sort of healthy living by not being involved in crime. So why? Because we are all saying that look, you've given us a good economic opportunity, but we are still saying why we succeeded is because of our adhyatmic nature, is because we do not want to get involved in trouble. We go and study the extracts of Bhagavad Gita to have the better sort of lifestyle. तो हम credit उनको नहीं दे रहे हैं. We are not giving them credit, and that scares and annoys them to no end. For 21 years, I've observed this attitude of the American establishment. You call it deep state, you call it intelligentsia, you call it the State Department, what have you. Literature, Jan Vujke, on purpose, they find literature which they implanted about 100 years ago. Like you rightly said, what is this word caste? कहाँ था system, caste system? 1871 में the British came up with this SC/ST Act of putting these tribes who fought against them away from the mainstream, to keep them away from us, so that integration never happened. The tribals in Jharkhand today consider Birsa Munda their god. The tribal leader था वो. अब उसको आपने क्या किया? ट्राइबल राजा को बना दिया ST, and you have said their religion was never part of Hinduism. Some Santalism or something they have come up with. Church is now sponsoring the Jharkhand government to install a new religion in their state, whatever state dictates is कि आप Santalism को promote कीजिए. ये कौन सा संतालिज्म है भाई? ये कहाँ exists? It never existed, right? So this is where this global academic structure built by the Western imperial hegemony unfortunately comes into picture. We as Sanatanis have to understand the game plan, the deep game plan of what they are trying to do to try to pull you down in the future. Abhi nahi karenge. Abhi they still have to deal with China, by the way. Every single, by the way, Adi ji, we are nowhere in consideration as an adversity, potential adversary to the United States or the larger Western civilization because they still have to deal with China. China is the biggest elephant in the room. उसको डील करते वक्त 20 साल लग जाएगा. तब तक the smart, hardworking people who are going to the United States for engineering professions, bio, pharma, medical, whatever it is, they will be brainwashed by the American universities to say that, look, just like we had a bad past of racism, you guys also have a bad past of casteism. देखिए क्या false equivalence ले बहुत smartly, ताकि we will never be able to ask them about race.
That's right.
You
That's
see,
right.
an impressionable mind at the age of 21. I went to the US when I was 21.
Critical
Luckily
faith,
for me, I was never. Huh?
critical faith theory was a term coined by me that I said critical faith theory is the main problem, not critical race theory. Because critical race
Oh,
theory,
that's. I mean, I mean,
it's in my
they.
book Gold, Glory, and God, and I said critical faith theory is the main reason behind critical race theory. So critical race theory was
Yeah.
designed to defend against critical faith theory.
Yes, and they are so smart that they have created template after template because they feel one generation after one another generation of Indians, Hindus in particular, will be so gratified with the economic opportunities that the United States or other European countries have provided that हम बिल्कुल ही हमारे चरित्र चाल और आपका जो complete history है उसको भूल जाएंगे और उनका faith अपना लेंगे, which is what has happened to most civilizations. But no, the Chinese has never given up. You can call it whatever, Adiji. The Chinese have still hung on to the vestiges of the Confucian theory, their gods. They're masking it with socialism and communism क्योंकि उनको country को इतने बड़े country को they have to hold on to it, right? So they have this principle of state will have no religion, but every individual has their own belief system,
See
which is
the
driven. Yeah,
the biggest what I understand from your answers and your points that you make is the instead of creating a duty-based society, which is primarily dharmic, where everyone follows their dharma properly, because majority of the problems are in the mind, and people's minds are so unsettled due to political actions, due to media actions, and also WhatsApp University. WhatsApp University
hmm.
has done more damage to the thinking power than anything else.
Correct,
I mean, in the name of
correct.
raising awareness, what has happened is that we have become reactive, and we all have to step back and think and start working in a non-reactive way, because when you do something according to your own nature, then you're naturally strong, because you're not following somebody else's game plan. And that's how what the paramparas and traditions of India do. They root you so strongly in your own culture that you start making decisions, not reactions. And the like this simple incident, Bharat Chodo, and it is such a foolish statement. Like they're saying all
Yeah.
the teachers, all the intelligentsia, all the thinkers, all the people who control their senses, all the people who speak truth should leave. So I mean,
all
what is
those
the
who all those who think all those who think should leave. That is the that is the summary.
I mean, how illogical that word is. So that just shows the ignoramuses there, that how they're thinking.
Correct.
But even worse than that, people who are silent. I mean,
Yeah,
silent about
that
just quietly, especially those in power, because I'm not saying others who can, but the general people should also talk about it. If the people in power are not talking, they should not remain in power.
well again, this is where the gray area of is this truly a democracy that will give the opportunity for everybody to speak equally on any issue that they choose to, or whether it is still a state where hard numbers matter. And if the minorities, if you look at the by birth Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and the so-called upper strata of the Shudra community, that is barely about 30 to 35%. Not even 30, I wouldn't even say 30%. Maybe it's down to 25% because of falling, numbers as far as their demographic. Then in certain parts in UP and Bihar, it's growing, but it remaining part of India, it's gone down. It is what a hard-nosed politician. These people in power are generally going to be looking at numbers. They will always say कि ठीक है अब हम
But again,
हमारा वोट बैंक बदल
no,
बदल गया है हाँ
we call again the democracy now comes in democracy versus Loktantra. Now, in
हम्म,
Lokatantra, Lok Sangraha matters, Lok Yatra matters, Lokpal matters. But in democracy, like if you know the history of US very well, in 1908, when the European settlers became more in number than the local Native American population, at that time, democracy, Native Americans were allowed to vote. And that
correct.
too, not allowed to vote, majority of them were not allowed until 1924, when the US Constitution passed a law that they gave officially the citizenship of USA to Native Americans. So 16 years passed from that time when the church decided to give them right to vote.
Yeah,
So
no, I think even in when I was reading with my older daughter being in her ninth grade here in India, there is a mandatory section of the Constitution, how it came about and what was included in it in the initial stages, because the Constitution was a different guide from 1947 to 1977, and some very strategic changes were made by the leftist lobbies, pressurizing Indira Gandhi in the mid 70s, which changed the face of the constitution from being focused on rights and duties equally, which is what Bhagavad Gita teaches us, right? That you have both and they are codependent on each other, to only being focused on rights, right to information, right to equality, right to living anywhere. हाँ, सब कुछ right है. बस उसके लिए what are you going to do to it? What is the ideal citizen? What is the duty of a father to a son, which is also given as directives to the state? See, the founders of the initial phase of the constitution, which is very clearly described in the debates and the constituent assembly. Those were very smart people, and they had people on all sides. They had Ambedkar on one side, they had K.L. Munshi on another side, they had Chama Prasad Mukherjee. There were leftists, hardcore leftists also. They did bring the document, the base template, very closer to what we think can be extracted from Bhagavad Gita. After all the amendments in the first draft, so to speak, but then the second draft came in, third draft came in, and all of these incessant pressures that were there to incorporate certain special privileges and rights for people. ये सब होने के बावजूद, still it was a very sane document for the first 30 years. But who is studying the constitution these days? Politicians don't. There is no mandatory sort of a course that they should take before taking the oath of office. If they only get the numbers, they get elected. They swear on whatever book. If they don't have Bhagavad Gita, they can bring any other book and they can swear on it. But their pledge of allegiance is to the state and the constitution. So no sort of detailed analysis has happened. Why certain things were inserted, who is behind them, can we go and do a unraveling of those special categories of articles that were inserted? Nobody has done that, unfortunately. But if you read the preliminary draft, it is an excellent document. Hopefully one of these days people with very adhyatmic bent of nature come to positions where they can at least review them, if not change it, because it's gone to an irretrievable extent because of the numbers game. The way it is positioned at this point in time, no such major changes can ever happen to the letter and spirit of the later draft of the constitution, unfortunately.
Thank you, Pramodji, for making such wonderful points and sharing your wisdom here with us, all of us. And for all the viewers who are watching, do see this discussion again and again, because we covered all the important points, right? From governance to the Bharat Chodo Brahman slogan, Brahman Bharat Chodo, like that. What they're saying is totally illogical. We have discussed it in very clear definitions. Like what they're saying is, it should become a fool's paradise. That's what they're saying.
Let me add in a summary that they can try as much as they can, but the adhyatmic shakti of this land is to be seen, to be believed. You have to experience it. I can't tell it in words. Every single mandir that has a certain power and a certain Salapurana around it, if you read through it, if you go through a process that is described, actually, if you ask the Panditji, he most likely will know what the process is to derive that kind of energy, spiritual energy from the place you visit. Plus, if you are also very interested in going back and learning certain key fundamentals, which is Sanskrit, you'll be happy to know that in next 25 years, the number of people who are actually speaking Sanskrit, and I was very busy in organizing a book launch by my friend on Aruna Prashna, or the science of Arunam, as it is called, right? And I didn't notice that a scholar had come and started speaking. Only after a while, it started getting into the mindset of the people that he was speaking fluent Sanskrit. Majority of the people in the audience were either Telugu speakers or maybe barely some few Hindi speakers, considering this is Bhagyanagar or Hyderabad as it is called presently, right? He was speaking Sanskrit. We did not realize. I can speak Sanskrit. I can understand Sanskrit. So to me, that switch on, switch off from Telugu to Hindi to Sanskrit happened automatically. This was a book launch, a major book launch, or jisme he is going and speaking in fluent Sanskrit on the importance of reading Vedam, and at least speaking one Vedam, and is there still not time lost for the people in their 40s and 50s to embark on one serious study of the Vedas? And he, after 5-10 minutes of his discourse, we started realizing that he was speaking to us in Sanskrit. So you'll be happy to know that the number of native Sanskrit speakers is growing by leaps and bounds. We will have to see the statistics on that. And if it gets the constitutional protections, now everything is constitutional, right? So if it gets the constitutional protection as a living language, then we have done our job, because our ancestors have written everything that is necessary to be read. बस उसको जाके संस्कृत में पढ़ना है. You cannot read it in some other language. The translation of it is difficult to understand and to digest and to practice. So I'm seeing that as a very good consequence of the past 15-20 years of this awakening that has happened in pant shirt wearing Brahmanas, as I call them, of new age Brahmanas, who are now embarking on maybe doing some focus on maybe some part of Upanishads. Some of them are doing analysis of dissertation on Vedas. Some of them are doing Purva Paksha on Puranas that got added later on for the past 2000 years. So I am amazed, considering my association with Nileshji, who's also a dear friend of yours. People are taking a deeper dive on those things, which I thought ye to गायब ही हो जाएंगे. They will essentially be relegated to a manuscript, hopefully in a digital library somewhere. People are actually digging it out, and going through it, and experiencing it, which is unbelievable. So that
And,
community of go ahead.
and maybe we should start using the word varna more often, and start recognizing people based on their actions rather than based on where they're born. Because once you start doing that, then automatically correct the varna definitions and stop responding to the
You
Western,
know,
or the in Western Indologists, because people can be coconuts in India too. They're looking like Indians, but they're not
you know,
Indians.
they try their best to copy the best of our knowledge systems, but they have been unable to do so. Lekin they are very good at copying at least the syllables we use.
Yes,
I think Rajiv Malhotra ji says that very well. He keep using new words that the Western guys will be caught unawares. Then they'll try to digest it. Then they'll try to come up with a new meaning for it. Ki, this is what we meant. We meant Varna was caste. And then catch them in the act. I've seen people start using Om Shanti instead of RIP extensively. ये मैं 10-15 साल से सभी लोगों को ये बता रहा था कि RIP is not what you use for a departed Hindu Atma. You have to say Om Shanti. That maybe I was considered too conservative at that point. Now, आपके 5 RIP दिखेंगे, लेकिन 10 के 10 आपको Om Shanti भी दिखेगा. And they will say Mahamrut, let us do Garuda Puran. Not many people knew about Garuda Puran. Very few people maybe knowing that Garuda Puran should be recited during the phase after the departure, right? So that change is palpable, lekin it is still an incomplete change because India has slowly started becoming Indic Rashtra, from Indic to Hindu to Dharmic Rashtra, which is a very big transition of what you have been saying all along. Ki it should be gunas based. It should be Jnanam based, not Panditya based. That transition is still about 15 to 20 years away because you need that numbers. You need that number of Sanskrit speakers. You need people who have done preliminary research on some of these things. I feel I will run out of time. I'm just slowly embarking on this journey. But hey, at least I'm giving it a shot.
Thank you very much, Pramod Buravalli ji, and thank you for all the viewers for watching. Do like, share, subscribe. Don't feel pity on our channel. Do share widely. Namaste and thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.